When people complain about modern art, one of the things they often say is that it's meaningless. I don't actually think this is true. I think instead that people say it because they have a preconceived idea about the kind of thing that counts as a meaning. I'm going to look at 4 models of meaning. The first 2 are very common, the last 2 are less often discussed, but just as important for all that. The first model of meaning is buried treasure. The meaning exists, but it is hidden. It needs to be unearthed and brought into the light. Once it has been uncovered, people will say, "Ah, that's what it is. Now I understand." The discovery of this kind of meaning generally requires some specialist knowledge because it is something hidden within the object. Caravaggio's painting of David with the head of Goliath is a good example of this kind of meaning. David has killed the giant and cut off his head, which he now carries back to the Israelite army. Instead of the brightness of the day and the excited bustle around David, Caravaggio has substituted darkness and solitude. At the moment of what should be his greatest triumph, David has become melancholic and contemplative. All this makes sense when you are told that the head of Goliath is actually a self-portrait of Caravaggio, who was a fugitive from justice, wanted for murder, and facing the death penalty. This undoubtedly changes the painting and what you perceive as its meaning, but it's not something that you could pick up from the painting alone. You need someone to tell you about the self-portrait. Once they've unearthed this bit of information for you, the rest falls into place. There's nothing wrong with this as a model of meaning, it's just that not everything fits this pattern. The second model of meaning is the bullseye, the feeling that you've not just hit the target but got the top score. In this model, the meaning is not hidden, but it outweighs every other kind of consideration. Duchamp's notorious fountain would be an example of this kind of meaning, though it's also the kind of artwork that people object to as being meaningless. My guess is that everyone who has come across this work from 1917 to the present day at some point asks themselves whether or not they think it counts as a work of art. The whole point of the object is to provoke just that question. It functions as a thought experiment. As a piece of conceptual art, the idea, the concept, is everything. The physical object is secondary. The actual urinal that Duchamp exhibited in 1917 was thrown away and destroyed, and the various urinals that can be found in museums across the world now were made, or remade, in the mid-1960s. However, they're not copies of Fountain, but the actual work, because they carry the thought of the work. The original urinal, if original is the right word, was in any case a mass-produced object, not special or unique in any way. The third model of meaning is alignment, and the clearest example of this is anamorphosis. At the front of Holbein's painting is a strange slanting shape. It doesn't make much sense seen from the front, but as you move further and further to the right, it gradually becomes visible. By the time it's fully visible, the rest of the painting is unreadable. You can see the skull, or you can see the ambassadors, but you can't see both together. Seeing the skull, and the way you come to see the skull, changes the painting. The spectre of death cuts across the space of the living. Death haunts the ambassadors, but they are unaware of its presence. Meaning here is not hidden, nor is it purely conceptual. Rather, it is a question of alignment. Once you are physically in the right position, the painting reveals its meaning, or rather, it reveals the incompatibility between its frontal and oblique meanings. In the case of the ambassadors, the alignment is physical. You need to stand in a certain place. For most works of art, though, alignment is emotional and psychological. You need to shift around inside yourself to find the right frame of mind from which to look. The final model of meaning is resonance. A tuning fork will make the same note whenever it is sounded. However, the quality of the sound varies depending on the nature of the material it is held against, whether that's wood or stone, or, in this case, the human body. Some materials amplify and enrich the sound, others dampen and deaden it. Similarly, the meaning of some artworks relies on resonance. They depend on their viewers to be their sounding boards. It requires work on the part of the viewer to work out exactly what the artwork requires of them, and this differs from artwork to artwork. To give just one example of this approach, I'd like to touch upon the art critic Adrian Stokes' response to stone carving. He was very interested in Renaissance relief carving and also in the direct carving approach of Barbara Hepworth and Henry Moore. He said, "A figure carved in stone is fine carving when one feels that not the figure, but the stone, through the medium of the figure, has come to life. It's not the stone here that is the medium, but the figure." And this is a surprising, really interesting thing to say. The point of this kind of carving, for Stokes, was not to impress an idea upon the material, but to use the process of carving to augment the character and identity that the stone already had. He argues that unless the viewer can come to love stone as a material for its own sake, they will never fully understand this type of artwork. The love of stone here is attunement. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe, or visit my channel, Think of a Picture, where you'll find many more.